expert, the guy. Matty's got jokes and a wild ride. 30 minutes, no time to spare. Stack your lineup, win anywhere. SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.
For the Aussie NFL Network, this is the NFL SuperCoach Halfa podcast, back for a 10th episode, which just absolutely blows my mind up. Seeing we only started very recently, we're at 10 shows. That's a bit of a milestone, and we're just so pleased that we're here, still doing it 10 shows in. I'm Matty C, and joining me today on this beautiful anniversary is Australia's finest fantasy analyst of all persuasions. It's Taylor Goodall. Mate, 10 episodes. Can you believe it?
Matty C, you and I have often been called things with the word dick. But who bloody cares? Because it's week bloody 6. Let's go.
You got there. Poetry Society, did they follow us around on this show like they do the other one?
Well, I technically could if they really wanted to get, specific. I could have said dicks and 6 instead of dick. Didn't go plural. I didn't pluralize. So the Poetry Society might be after me, Matt, with that one. But look, in the end, I own the Poetry Society, mate. That's I pay their contracts, so we're good to go.
Without you, I think they'd be bored. Mate, 10 shows in, I'm just so chuffed. Every week we get together to do this show that it continues to grow in popularity, and we continue to get more and more people wanting to engage with us on NFL SuperCoach. I'm just so thrilled.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like the superlatives I, give to the listeners, they are basically endless. So I think I did it about 11 times in my solo pod, and I feel like every time I get a chance, I go on and on about it. I feel like they're probably over it. They want me to start calling them wankers, but there's plenty of time for that later, Matty C. For now, I'm going to thank you guys constantly, and the feedback we get. Show like we never expected to get anywhere near the support that we've had for this show, especially this quickly. You guys are phenomenal. Like, I have had nothing but positivity in my DMs about this. I know there's been like people doing podcasts in the Supercoach world that, whether it's been the people listening or whether it's been the person themselves, have not really dealt with criticism and stuff well, whereas like I feel like you and I kind of welcome it, and generally we just haven't got any of it. It's been positive, and you guys have asked amazing questions, and you guys are really, really on the ball with everything. And it's been amazing, the different diversity between people that have played Supercoach forever, or they've played NFL fantasy but they haven't done the other thing. It's just, or they've just basically never played either. It's been phenomenal, Matty C, and I can't wait to keep growing this podcast as time goes on.
I mean, Tay, it is getting so big now, we're actually working on our format of what we can fit into an episode. Firstly, Halfa, that's out that we know. We're an hour show now. But secondly, every week now, the mailbag is becoming quite a thing. So it's kind of informing how much time we can spend on other things in the show. But we do think it's really important that when people take the time to send us a question, that we give it some space to address what people's situations are like, because we know when one person's asking, it means there's probably 20 people who've got that situation and who haven't asked. So we know that it benefits the masses to answer specific questions as well.
Yeah, we've already, tinkered with things. We've had little segments that we've tried, and then kind of looked at ourselves and went, you know what, we might not need that. And, like the more mailbag stuff we're getting, the better. We're noticing that that's just, like you just said, just questions that are super relevant to people's situations out there. So I feel like, I'll make sure I'll get that mailbag, question out there on Wednesdays instead of Thursdays moving forward, because we've had far bigger Tyreek, ball sack mailbag this week. So I just feel like that'll be the thing moving forward. And I feel like that being a huge part of the show, as well as obviously the trade-ins and trade-outs, because they're very super specific. Those two main segments will definitely be mainstays, and we'll sort of just tinker around it. But yeah, I feel like just based off the feedback and honestly our own realization of how the pods have been going, those will be the segments that stay.
And listen, look, it's your show, really. We want to present things that are relevant to you. So give us the feedback, give us a criticism. Mate, we've actually got a little bit of feedback from somebody about the way we were pronouncing their team. So yeah, we can take feedback. So please give it to us, because we want the show to grow into the thing that you want it to be, because it's your show, essentially. We do it because we know that there's a lot of people out there playing who could use the resources, and we're in a great position to be able to help offer that. We just want to make sure that the time we're taking from you, and you do dedicate time of your day to listen to us, is based in things that you want to hear about. So, yeah, mate, we can take feedback, Tay. We've been taking it for 6 years with our other show.
We have, and we know we're not perfect. There was even some things last week. I had some people, give me start sits, and honestly, I got them wrong. There was some Gibbs against Jonathan Taylor, and I went Gibbs. I'm not shirking away from things that go wrong. I know I'm not perfect. I know things are going to go haywire. I follow my own analysis, and my hope is that if I can get 51% of it right, then I've definitely ended up on the right side. But I understand that things aren't always going to be perfect. But I just had a laugh there, Matty. So you brought up the team name thing. For anyone who doesn't know our vocab, instead of foreshadowing, we foreskin. So you were just foreskinning the next segment, mate.
Yeah, I am. And also, if you want to hear about, people making classic blunders and being able to own up to them, you wait till I tell you what trades I actually did last week. So, mate, one thing we love to do every week is, because we've got 300 people in our SuperCoach group where we've got a competition running too. You join our league. The winner of our league is going to get a nice big pack of about $200 worth of Aussie Gridiron Network gear, which is it's really damn cool. I love that we're doing that. And it'll include a custom jersey of an NFL player you want, and there'll be other items from the Aussie Gridiron Network store just to help pad that out, to get you to a couple of bits that you can wear around and show off your SuperCoach fan and with pride. But, mate, the way to do that and way to get involved is join our league. And the code for that will be in our show notes, 962235. But you can find it everywhere you listen to this podcast. If you just tap open the podcast notes itself, it'll be the top line. But, mate, you also then have to have your team rolling. And I mean rolling. And every week we talk about the top few dudes whose team are rolling. Did you want to give us an update on the leaderboard, mate?
I will, and it's nice to shout this guy that's out in front, because he was up there for a little while, then he kind of faded off, and then he's been a big proponent of messaging me in DMs, and so he's been super interested in our podcast, and they're the people obviously we like to see up there because we know they're engaged and definitely listening. So in first right now it's Reese, and this is the man who gave me a little bit of a G up that I was pronouncing his team name wrong, and that's honestly probably just a mix of me being autistic or dyslexic or just basically just being a goober. So apologies for that one, Reese. So I will give this one a try again. It is the Towns Villain, not the Towns Villian that I was pronouncing it before. So that actually makes a lot more sense, and I'm realizing what a goober I am. So shout out Reese. He is currently leading the way. It's obviously super tight at top, but good to see you not only back into the top 5, mate, but obviously into the lead. So congratulations to you. In second place, this is another name. This is actually a person's name that I feel like I've probably butchered like 3 times already. But the EC Weapons, coached by Ayarangi. That's the best I can do. Apologies if that's completely wrong, but you're in second place. Third is Genty and Juice, bit of gin and juice, laid back, coached by Matthew. So well done to you, mate, in third. This one, every single time, this guy's top 5 fucking week. Even Stephen, coached by Stephen. I think Matty C, I don't even think this guy's in the top 5. I think Matty C just puts him in the dock, so I can say that name. And in fifth place, Sarcastic, coached by Rick. So I think that's the first time he's got himself in the top 5. So again, anyone who's not in that top 5, how many different names have we said over these 6 weeks? Like, it's just constantly been new people sort of in and out the entire time. So please don't give up. I was like 250th out of the 300 there a couple of weeks ago, and I've kind of made a move myself. So anyone out there, don't give up. Just keep pushing out, and hopefully our content we give you each week can help that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, the great thing is too, we have seen some fluctuation, people coming in, people coming out, new names in there. And it's super exciting, especially when you see folks who've been in there drop out and then they come back and you're like, you're not done. You're not done. But it's also great to see people are continuing to evolve their team and that you do get the new entries. So keep it rolling, guys. There's 300 in that group. Currently, I'm about 106, so I'm still not really in with that much of a sniff. But we got off to such a nice start. I'm a bit reluctant to let it go, Tay. I'm hoping I can just keep on pressing up there. But just look at some of the scores these guys are getting. I don't know if I'm ever going to catch them.
No, it seems tough, but it's funny how things work. And then obviously we don't know how, situations are going to go with injuries and who holds trades and who doesn't. So honestly, Supercoach can throw up some weird stuff. So please don't panic. Honestly, even if you realize hey, mate, I might not catch first and get the jersey, it is kind of cool in Supercoach just to give yourself a bit of a goal. It's like, hey, I'm sitting at 5,000th overall. My goal is to be in the top 1,000 by the end. That's the thing. You don't always have to have these dreams of grandeur you're going to win all of Supercoach. Sometimes it's just I'm going to push hard to get myself that top 1,000 rank or that top 100 or whatever, and it just kind of keeps you moving forward and gives you that sort of goal or that prize at the end of the rainbow.
Let's dive into some of the nuts and bolts of this show. We start each week with some traded outs, and then we come back with the guys who are traded. And we try and hit the 8 most moved players out and in all of Supercoach. And we talk about why. Is it a wise move? What situation are you in for this to be something that you're considering? So we start with the outs. And strangely to me, the most traded out player is Brock Bowers. Now, he didn't play last week. Doesn't impact a lot for him. He's $11.85 million with a break even of 36. Tate, what do you think it is that's getting people to jump ship on Brock Bowers in such big numbers?
Now, after our recording last week, I had a lot of people come to me and say, hey, you talked me out of trading out Bowers, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, that was before we got news he was out. I think, we obviously record on a Thursday, so we don't have all the information. But at that point, we weren't sure if he was going to play or not. I just didn't believe that he was a sell, given the fact there was a chance he would still play. I understood people when they saw he was out maybe wanted to downgrade to someone, but the problem was for me, I still didn't really understand who that player was in tight end. If you have a look at the tight end landscape in general, there just isn't a person that's winning you Supercoach in there. It's like Tyler Warren, who we all have already, that you can just start week to week and just get great production out of. That sort of tight end too, I just, outside of downgrading and just basically sitting someone on your bench and just saving yourself some money, I don't really understand why we need to be using up our trades on the tight end position. It is a hard one though. When I say it's a hard one, I kind of look at this pretty simply in the way that if he's out this week, I can completely understand the sell. You can sort of wait it out to the weekend. I understand going, all right, I can't handle this guy being out 2 weeks. He hasn't really been showing a lot while he's been on the field. And this Raiders team is basically an abomination on offense at the moment. So I can understand not seeing a ceiling for him and going, you know what, he's out. I can't handle it. I'm dropping down to a Darren Waller or something and saving $8 million and getting that break even. But if you find out Sunday morning that Brock Bowers is expected to play, don't sell him. It's just, that's a gift from gods that you can save a trade, because Brock Bowers, to me, if he is actually healthy or anywhere near it, he's actually a tight end you're going to want to finish the season with. So what's the point of trading him out just to get him back in? I will bring this up so many times about NFL Supercoach. We don't need the money this bad. We do not need to be trading out guns to guys that have great break even like we do in NRL. We do not need the money as bad as we did in NRL Supercoach. I implore you guys, our teams are very close to the teams we already want for the run home. We don't need to be burning our trades. The only difference between the teams that might win at the end and the ones that don't is the ones that hold their trades to the end, because we might all have a team we like. The only difference will be the ones that can replace the guys that get injured in week 13, 14, 15, and the ones that can't. So do not burn your trades. And I think if Bowers is playing, you are burning a trade by trading him out. Sorry for going on a bit of soapbox. That was a long answer. But it was just, I kind of wanted to incorporate that early, because I feel like people trading him if he is healthy is kind of people doing that and kind of starting to burn their trades when they don't need to.
Yeah, I think you covered about 3 things there. Is the Bowers thing, the trades thing, and the money thing. And I think it's not just the answer about Bowers. It's actually the answer about 3 really important tenets of what makes up good Supercoach management, and the way that is going to work in NFL that's different from your AFL and your rugby league, where there is just so many more transactions to make and so many more positions to fill, and teams have buys the whole way through the season. That is not true in NFL. All the buys are done within about an 8-week stretch. They've only just started, and if you burn them all now, you leave yourself in peril. And I just think all of that very timely, very timely. It's not going to be the only time we talk about that in these next few weeks, I bet you.
No, not at all, mate.
The next guy on the list, I understand the trade out for Omarion Hampton. He hurt his leg. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. He's been put on IR. There is a likelihood he will eventually be back at some stage. There's no timeline on that. He is $12.36 million, having started at a $4 million base. So he's come a long way. His break-even was -1. I definitely understand why people are moving on from him, because we've got a lot of buys coming up and bench space might be a premium.
Yeah, I completely get it. And I asked him, and you never know with this situation. It could be longer than 4. I know there's reports saying that it looks like it might not be more than 4, but we just don't know. You never know. Like Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal, who are coming in to replace him, if they show good flashes, then all of a sudden when Hampton comes back, he might not have that full 100% workhorse role when he's back as well. It could be more of like a 30 split, which obviously cuts into him. It's just his reasons as why, even though he's got a -1 break even when he comes back, it's just 12.3 mil sitting there for that long. It's kind of not worth it. You'd rather be either downgrading for cash to use elsewhere, or what I've kind of done is, because I brought in a running back at flex, I can actually trade him up to quarterback and move Jahmyr Gibbs back into running back, which is something I'll touch on with my trades.
Yeah. And I definitely get it too. Like, a -1 break even is generally something that you'd be jumping at. But the NFL IR is a 4-week minimum sit out. It doesn't mean 4 weeks. It means 4-week minimum. Could be longer, but it can't be sooner. So I definitely understand why people will be skittish about hanging on to that level of money sitting there, not doing anything for that period, and that potentially the opportunity to trade him back in through buy periods may be there. But there'll be questions about what he's like when he gets back. So I definitely understand it. And I feel like if you're in a boat where you're trading out O'Murray and Hampton to free up that cash and do other more productive things with it, I don't see a problem with it either. Mate, I am so interested in your take on this one, because the third most traded out guy in all of NFL Supercoach is J.J. McCarthy. He has not moved from his opening day price of $3.7 million because he hasn't played enough games for his break even to shift and his money to shift. But what's happening here is that because he played that outstanding half of a game at the end of week 1, he's got himself a break even of -35, but people are trading out of him. Can you help me understand that one?
We had a mailbag question about this last week, and now we've got about 1,700 of them in our mailbag this week. So, yeah, look, I'll touch on my kind of feelings about it now. I probably won't go as in depth because obviously we've got mailbag question to sort of ask, and it kind of just gets ruined by the fact that I'm, either talking it up or talking it down. But the fact he's got a -35 break even, he's on an amazing offense with an amazing coach. And I brought this up in the preseason. He's kind of sheltered by his environment in this team. Yes, they have offensive line struggles, but I don't think there's a better offensive mind to actually work around that when he's back. I personally feel, look, I'm not a doctor for anyone. Sorry for anyone who's looking for medical knowledge. And if you are, sure, and I've given you, please do the opposite. The way I'm looking at this is Wentz kind of fit a perfect timeline, I believe, for them, because obviously McCarthy picked up that injury. It doesn't look like it's anything super major. They then had to go overseas and play multiple games, and then all of a sudden they've got a bye. So it kind of fits to me like a timeline. Look, I can't guarantee this, but I would actually be surprised if he isn't there next week, because it kind of fits a perfect timeline for him to sort of just rest that up. He's the rookie, sit behind Wentz for a little bit and just sort of see how he goes as a veteran, and then come back, fresh after a bye and those few weeks off. I would be shocked if he isn't starting. And then even if he isn't, I just can't imagine. They didn't put him on IR. Like, there's no way this is a long-term injury. He's not far away. And then all of a sudden, it's like you've traded him to let's just say you've traded him to Jackson Dart, because we'll get into that with the mailbag. But in the end, you're trading one amazing break-even for another. If maybe 1 week earlier, we do not need the cash this bad. We can wait it out. Yes, everyone's freaking out about that buy with Josh Allen. Just stay the course, wait and see if McCarthy is back next week, and then kind of plan your moves there. We do not need to jump off bridges and do our trades early. So I personally don't like it. I am definitely staying pat on McCarthy, especially because to me, Dart has his own issues. Yes, he runs, but we'll get to that later. But I'm just saying, don't sell McCarthy.
Yeah, to me, it just sort of seemed like that perfect storm of he's bugger all money. He doesn't even need to score any points to generate you money when he does finally play. And he's not even doing that. Like, he's the perfect person to be on your bench as well. There just didn't seem to be a plus case for me to move him out. There's definitely a plus case to move out Lamar Jackson. It does look like he's going to miss another week. He's $29 million with that break even of 82, which is an enormous number. Just a lot of reasons to want to move on from him, to free up that cash to do other things with it, especially knowing that if you're one of these fellas who's a Josh Allen owner as well, you're kind of getting a week ahead of a bye. But mate, it is a difficult situation for Lamar Jackson, who's definitely not going to be playing this week.
No, again, this is another one. We've seen this a lot where we've sort of given advice to sell someone and then all of a sudden they've been like one of the most sold the week after. It probably was one I would have liked to have gotten in front of last week, because you're obviously getting the time with him not playing, because it looks almost guaranteed he's going to miss the 3 weeks with the last week, this week, and then the bye. So, yeah, last week was probably the time, but I don't mind people still getting off this week, because there are, a plethora of very good options. And I just think with the way that money is kind of easily made in this format, I do think we're all going to be able to get him back pretty quickly when he sort of hits the ground runnings after his injury in the bye. So, yeah, I'd be flipping him. I know I've talked about not wanting to burn trades, but I do think this is a situation where the points just matter for the guy that you're bringing in. And yeah, I just think he's not a must trade, but he's pretty close to it. I think, if you want to stay up there with your points, this is probably one you need to do.
Yeah, and I think this is that push point, right? Is he needs an awful lot of points to stay even with his money, or his money's going down and you've invested 28 million or whatever it was in his opening day price anyway, and he's not playing. So he's a difficult keeper. So it's just all the things that should make him really appealing are very difficult right now. So I support people doing it, and just knowing that they need to give themselves a path to get back to him, because later in the year he's going to score a lot of points again. So as long as they give themselves that escape hatch, and whether it's knowing that they've invested in somebody cheaper who they can move out of once they've made a bit of money to try and help bridge that void again when it's time to move back to Lamar Jackson. You just got to give yourself a bit of a fire escape, I think. And whether that fire escape someone like Ibuka or someone like that who's scoring a ton of points right now and costing nothing to start with, that you need to plan what you're going to do there. The next guy on the list, this is the fifth guy, and I'm surprised to see so many people had this guy in their lineup to start with, but he's their fifth most sold player and traded out player in all of SuperCoaches. Cam Ward, the quarterback, who's a rookie for Tennessee. He's moved his way up to 7.7 million, so he's made you $3 million and only has a break even of 14. I tell you, at the start of the season, we sort of thought his situation was a lot less predictable than some of the other players in the same cash range. So I was just surprised to see so many people had still held him.
Yeah, I think even though we were imploring people to start with McCarthy over him, obviously the injury and everything that happened to McCarthy has made that kind of not look as good. But we were obviously, pretty high on the fact that Ward is going to be a slow burn and it's going to be tough walking into that Tennessee situation because they're not set up for success right now. But the problem I have to sell now is I feel like you're selling at the absolute worst time on Cam Ward. I feel like he has dealt with basically 5 of the worst defenses that you want to up against as a rookie. And now all of a sudden people are looking at this and going, oh, now here's the time to sell. But then he walks into the Las Vegas Raiders, who are in the bottom half against quarterbacks, then New England Patriots, who are also in the bottom half against quarterback, then the Colts, who have been okay. They've been pretty good generally as a defense, but against quarterback, they've actually been middling. Then the Chargers, who are very similar, they've been sort of around middle pack against the quarterback position. Then he goes into his bye. I just feel like, look, I'm not taking the Titans win as anything more than the most luckiest, shittiest game of the season. All the crappy, insane stuff with DeMarcado and it was more the Cardinals losing it than the Titans winning it. That's here, but there is also at least a chance that it's a little bit of a confidence boost for Ward. He also had to throw have a pretty good drive to win that game. He had to have that 40-odd yard pass to Ridley. He actually showed that he is learning, and then, things are obviously picking up for him. The connection between him and Ridley looked great. I just don't get at this price. My assumption is people are going down to Jackson Dart, but it's 7 or so million. I don't get it. There's no point. His break evens are constantly going to be low. He's walking into a better part of the schedule. He's seen 5 weeks of NFL play and what he needs to do to be a quarterback. I would implore people not to get out of him now. I am not a biased Titan fan. I told everyone not to start with Ward 100%. From the get-go. But if you have him now, I don't like the sell because, like, even if you're going down to dart, you're making what, like 4 million or something, barely. It's like, I just don't see the point.
No, because then, they're awkward prices. And when you see that there's just actually nothing scary for Ward in the next month anyway, his break-evens are going to remain achievable as he walks into matchups where he's just more likely to outscore it. It's if you've stuck with him, there's no point moving now. And I was just surprised to see how many people had him.
Is also an option for next week if people need coverage for Josh Allen. Like, I don't get why you'd be selling him. It seems like a really, really weird time to do that. Like, I still think it's not so much about money to be made. I think it's 7 or so million. I think there is money to be made because I think just in general with these matchups, he's going to make some more money. It's more about like coverage. He's low price, so you're not making a bunch. If he'd all of a sudden risen to like 16 mil already, then yeah, I could maybe get it. But then on the flip side, if he's got a 16 mil, it means he's dominated already. So it's like I kind of don't really see a world where it actually makes sense to sell him right now because, like I said, he's got great matchups in front of him. So he's a rookie and it's taking time. So you'd think if anything, things are only going to get better for him, not worse as the season goes on in his rookie season. So yeah, I don't get that one.
You'd think. I mean, the next guy on our list here, the sixth most sold player in all of SuperCoach, is a rookie as well, whose situation is not nearly as good. Colston Loveland has started the season at about $4 million. He's put on a couple of $100,000, but he is in a position where the offense has kind of been running away from him. He's just come off a buy as well. So people have held him through their buy and not sold him through the buy, but are selling him now. And he is in a similar position where his break-even is not high, but he has shown that he may have trouble making that number.
Nah, see, this one's different. Like, I want people to hear the nuance between situations like this. Like, he's just not involved in the offense. Like, and he's another one that I tried to warn people off at the start of the year. I didn't like it. I know he's a low price, and it almost felt like it was a no-brainer or a situation that couldn't go wrong. I know that he had very high draft capital, but he's not even the number one tight end on his team. Like that was a issue for me. They obviously had a Dunze and DJ Moore and Luther Burden, who they took high as well. There was just too many mouths to feed for an offense that, everyone liked to make the comparisons to the Lions because Ben Johnson came over, but they're not the Lions. Like, they don't have the situation. Ben Johnson needs time to set this up, and Loveland's not going to walk in as rookie year Sam Laporta. So I never liked it in the first place. I'm assuming people are just over to Darren Waller with that ridiculously low break even. I have absolutely no problem with that move because, yes, it's sideways in dollar value, but it's not sideways at all in terms of a SuperCoach move because one's playable in your starting lineup and is about to make a shitload of money, and one is just a question mark moving forward completely. So if you're moving over to Darren Waller, I completely get it.
Oh, yeah, you say Loveland was kind of in a can't-miss situation. He did the most you can to miss. I mean, he comes in at $4 million. We're a month and more in. He hasn't actually improved in his value, and he's just kind of been a spud on your bench because you haven't been starting him. You certainly couldn't. So he's kind of done everything he can to make himself as useless as possible, which is a real pity because we had said in the preseason, look, if you're going to spend that money on a tight end who you think's got an opportunity, move out of that and into Tyler Warren. And Tyler Warren's clearly been the better of those two in that situation because he was involved in the offense from the word go. Mate, I wonder what you make of this one because the seventh most traded out player in all of SuperCoach is Derrick Henry. He's 15.5 million, so he's been on a bit of a slide money-wise. His break-even is a bit of a mess, and he hasn't been in super great situations. And the last couple of weeks, he's sort of seen his value depressed a bit, and especially now that Lamar Jackson's not around, that offense isn't playing the same way. Do you support people getting out of Derrick Henry, even if maybe they're a bit, maybe a week late?
Yeah, this is the problem with it now is you're getting closer to Lamar's return and you've lost all the money. You're at $15.15 million and it's actually closer to what I believe will be better days for Derrick Henry. If you can, I have no issues of you sitting him if you've got the depth at running back this week. I know it sucks. It's $15 million sitting on your bench, but I feel like we've kind of got enough money where we can get away with that. Then he's obviously got the buy. So I get why people are frustrated in their selling. A lot of people out there are just doing the numbers and the math and saying, you know what, this guy's not producing what I need for a guy from this value. His break even's 52, so he's probably going to lose a bit more coin. But the problem is you've sat on that $6 or $7 million loss, and it's like I just don't see the point of selling him now at the 15 mil. I think you wear it for one more week, you hold him in the buy, and then you get Lamar Jackson back for better matchups and better days moving forward. I refuse to believe that this offense is all of a sudden inept after the buy. You saw them put 40-odd points on the Bills. Like this duo between him and Lamar are still like the freakiest thing to defend in the league. So to me, at $15 million, I'm just grooming and bearing it. It's just too low. I just don't see the point. You're having to basically upgrade, $8-9 million to go these Jonathan Taylors and stuff like that. And in the end, you might actually want Henry in your team after the buy anyway. So it's like, I don't really see the point of selling now just to cop an extra $1.5 million loss. I think unless you're super duper desperate for a start in the next 2 weeks, and you just can't handle not having Henry there for these 2 weeks, I guess I can get it. But overall, in a nutshell, I just think I'd be holding him.
Yeah, I think, for the overall, like, people who are trying to build team value, I get why they would be doing this, but I think Derrick Henry's the kind of player you want in all kinds of fantasy, right? Like, in any other world where there's no, like, Lamar Jackson clinging to life for the next couple of weeks and then going into a bye, he's the kind of player you want to own in fantasy because, yeah, he costs you a bit. He costs you a bit because he's darn good and he'll continue to put up points. So it's a very depressed situation right now where that's not always going to be so guaranteed, but it will return. It absolutely will return. So to me, it's kind of one of these ones where I value my trades far more than dicking around with a couple of $1 million here.
Yep, no, I completely agree.
Yeah. The next guy I think may also be in a similar position because Trey McBride is the 8th guy we're going to talk about today and probably the last of the guys who are trading out in this segment we'll talk about. He's in a similar price range, $12.53 million. Has a pretty tough break even for a tight end at 38. But, mate, we know that this is the first point that the offense goes to, and the offense hasn't really been clicking and firing, but continues to go there. The points just haven't been there. Are you staying in the Flames if you got Trey McBride?
100%. Don't trade him. This is another play for me. This isn't one that I talked about with Genty where I'm like, oh, this is an amazing matchup and I feel like he's going to, blow the barn doors down specific week. This is just one, again, it's team building and just money management. I just don't get why you need to be getting out of these like studs at tight end. Like, yes, he hasn't been amazing during the year so far, but he's a guy that if you were to pick your finishing team this year in SuperCoach, he's probably there. It's probably him and Kittle, as your tight ends. So I don't really understand why you're selling this guy. His break-even's 38. He could hit that this week. It's like, I don't see this as being like this break-even you've got to get out of anyway. Yes, tight end sucks, but that's just proof of the pudding of why you would not be burning your trades on this position. You just groom and bury. There's a few 100%. Bad weeks for every single guy that you have. Like, it's just a shitty position. It's not going to be a super coach winning position. Yes, there's guys like Darren Waller with their great break evens and stuff like that. I guarantee you will be sitting here at some stage where people are selling Darren Waller and going, how shit's this guy? Like, it's just what tight end is in fantasy. So please do not jump off any bridges over tight end. If you've paid that extra bit of money for McBride, I'm sorry you've lost the $3 or $2.5 million so far. You just wear it because he is a guy, again, like I've brought up, if Bowers was healthy, McBride's healthy. That's the thing. Why are we trading a guy that we aren't forced into trading? Like, you wear the wins and the losses in terms of dollar value. You just keep him in the tight end position and you just don't move. You find a different way if you want to make money on a Darren Waller. I'm certain there's another tight end in your team that you can move instead. Just please keep McBride.
And they'll put a bow on guys who we're trading out into the trading in. And there's the 8 guys on this list are super compelling because they change so much of this list changes week in, week out. The very most traded in guy, I 100% understand why it is. $3.7 million, a break even of negative 44. It's Darren Waller, right?
I will just say too, I quite like the structure of our show where we talk about traded out first because I think traded out players we will spend more time on. Like, I think some of these trade ins are kind of self-explanatory. Like, I won't touch on them too long. I've even brought up Waller, occasionally already. But just Waller in a nutshell himself, if you can get to him, this is what I'm saying. Don't sell your studs. Don't sell guys like a healthy playing or your McBrides, don't sell them, but sell your underperforming players down to him. Just sell a guy if you win a mid-ranger, like I talked about in Joe. I actually made this trade last week. I went a week early. Normally, I don't advise that, but it was specific to my situation. I wanted to get out of Njoku because he was basically at a high break even. He wasn't doing anything. He had a quarterback change, and I felt like that was the moment for me. I had a specific situation I could do it. Lo and behold, buddy, Joku ended up having a good game with Dylan Gabriel anyway, but I was still happy with the sell because I feel like Waller is still a better buy than Njoku, and it just kind of worked out for that situation. If you've got a guy like that, a mid-ranger, like I still think some better days are for Hawkinson, but if you're a Hawkinson owner going into a buy, I've got no problem if you're selling him down to Waller. Like, they're the range of guys I would like to do it, not these studs who I think you're going to want to end the year with. So I do understand the Waller. Obviously, Loveland owners shifting straight to him, and there is plenty of different ways to get to him. So I just implore you to make the right way to get to him, but I do understand the buy.
Like, you don't have to manufacture a bizarre way to just make sure you get this guy because his break even and his cash is too appealing. It is okay if you don't hop in on this. So don't feel like you're missing like the once in a lifetime sale.
Can I just say quickly, just because I didn't really touch on specifics to why Waller was a good buy, I just kind of said he was because of his break even. For anyone wondering, the Miami Dolphins offense last season were number one in terms of targets to the tight end position. And a lot of that was because obviously Tua was hurt and they obviously wanted to just check down and they didn't want to get him sacked and blah, blah, blah. But what I've seen now with Waller coming back is you've lost Tyreek Hill, and I think they've kind of lost a little bit of ability to stretch the field. And I think they might actually revert back to that a bit more. So I think there's an opportunity here where the Dolphins could use their tight end a lot like they did last year with Jonnu Smith. So that's just a little bit of more of a feather in the cap if you weren't already convinced on Waller.
Yeah, I think there will be volume there. I don't think it'll always be what we've seen the last 2 weeks, so don't be tricked into thinking this is the norm for Darren Waller, especially after 2 years off being a rap artist. But here he is, and he's getting points, and he's cheap as hell. So I definitely get it. The guy behind him is in a very similar position too, because Jackson Dart comes in as a rookie that nobody had in their lineups to start with, and rightly he wasn't playing. Now he is, and he's already come out and put up 2 pretty good fantasy performances. And, if you're a football fan, football performances too, at $4.3 million with a break even of negative 50, I can definitely see why people are doing this, Tay. But how do you get to it?
That's the problem. I don't think there's a right avenue. And, people are sending McCarthy over to him, and I just don't. I don't like it. I just think you're better off staying the course and seeing McCarthy when he gets back. I feel like you're wasting a trade because I feel like all of a sudden you've just got Jackson Dart who's going to have rookie lumps. Like, we've seen him have 2 pretty good fantasy days, but there's going to be moments where he struggles, kind of like a Cam Ward. He's in the Giants. They are this amazing, offense. He's lost his wide receiver 1 in Malik Neighbors. I just don't get it. Like, there's going to be situations in 2 or 3 weeks where everyone's going to want to sell him, and then who do you sell him to? He's going to be sitting there at $9 million or something, and it's like you've got no avenue to get rid of him. You would have been better off just sticking with McCarthy. Like, I just think it's a bit of a waste of trade. I can't imagine there's really other avenues people are taking, because I can't imagine people are downgrading all the way from Lamar to him. That's just way too absurd and way too much money to really be banking. So yeah, I don't personally understand it. I mean, I understand it based off stats. Your minus 50 break evens. I know a lot of SuperCoach statisticians are going to look at that and go, that's my trade, I have to do it. But I've brought it up with, like, say, George Pickens last week. I just feel like we don't have to be chasing these low break evens every time. Yeah. Money has been not an issue. It's been super easy to make money in NFL Supercoach this year. So don't just jump at all these low break evens. Think about your team and your structure and what team you're going to want to finish the season with, because we don't want to be burning trades if we don't need to, because we really need them for the end of the year.
I've got one that, to me, kind of almost feels like the exact opposite. The third most traded in all of Supercoach is Jonathan Taylor, the running back for the Indianapolis Colts, who's had some just incredibly big weeks. In terms of regular fantasy football, this guy is not just the running back 2 in the season. He's the 3rd highest scoring player in all of fantasy. So you can see how that translates into him having been such a growth candidate in his cost. But why would people be trading him now with a break even of 48 at his highest price ever?
It's just people who are just chasing last week's points. They are looking at the numbers and going, I have a guy like Derek Henry who's not doing what Jonathan Taylor is. I need to trade. I need to find any avenue I can. I need to downgrade this guy. Spend up. This is where, like, I guess NFL fantasy knowledge comes into play here, because the dollar value between, say, Derek Henry and Jonathan Taylor is like $9 or $10 million right now, whereas the idea in NFL fantasy wouldn't be a $10 million difference in terms of between those two. Yes, people are worried about Derrick Henry, but I think in the end, if you were to do a redraft of draft, I think people would still take Derrick Henry maybe at the end of the second round instead of the first, like Jonathan Taylor. So that's just a little bit of a digression between it. It's like, yes, they have been worlds apart in the season so far, but that doesn't mean they're going to be worlds apart in the rest of the season. There are so many reasons to believe a guy like Derrick Henry, or some of the guys that are underperforming, maybe a Saquon that I'll touch on later, that might have been underperforming, but it doesn't mean, like, success now doesn't always lead to success later. So please remember that. Jonathan Taylor is great. He's in a great offense. I'm not trying to talk him down, but 24 and a bit million is just getting a bit too pricey. You're getting into quarterback range. I think if you've missed him already, I think it's okay to leave him. I'm leaving him. Yes, he's going to have some big games and the offense seems to be able to move. There's also going to be games where Danny Dimes rushes into 2 touchdowns and, you know, he's not getting amazing work in the passing game. So it's like if they have a game where, you know, they get boat raced or something like that later in the year and he doesn't get any passing work and doesn't get a touchdown, there's going to be moments where people might be talking about selling Jonathan Taylor. So, yeah, I just think stay the course with the running backs you've got. I don't think to be overpaying to get up to him.
This is a massive candidate for a later rage trade. I'm circling it now. We're going to come back and we're talking about people rage trading him very soon. Mate, I can see that there is a lot of positivity for this wide receiver at the Seattle Seahawks, Jackson Smith and Jigba. We call him JSN. He's priced at $16 million with a break-even of just 22, but he's been super consistent with his production. This is the kind of guy I could get on board buying even at his price.
Love him. I still think he's underpriced at 16 mil, honestly. I was lucky enough to get on him sort of low 13s, I think it was, so I was pretty happy with it. It was another one of these ones that I kind of did at around the same time as I did Garrett Wilson, where I said to you, it's some of your preseason takes, I'm always happy to just get rid of them if I see something on the field with my own eyeballs that changes that. Like, we don't need to be stuck to our beliefs. We can actually, adapt as things change. And one of the things was that Sam Darnold honestly has looked great. Like, we all thought he was going to turn into a pumpkin after leaving the KOC offense. We didn't even believe that he was an upgrade over Geno. And look how that's turned out. So this is like a PSA to everyone that does fantasy and I guess Supercoach in a different light. But if you believe something going and you've got all these like hardcore beliefs, if you go and see it different, don't be so stubborn that you can't change. We don't get everything right, but what you can get right is adapting at the right time, and that's what I did. I love JSN the player, love the talent. Like, he is literally probably my favorite wide receiver in the entire league. My only concern this year, Darnold. Then all of a sudden I saw how Darnold looked and how efficient he was and how good the passing work has been for this offense. And I changed. I just went, you know what, I'm trying to get JSN. I'm going to try and trade for him. I'm going to bring him in Supercoach, and it's been amazing. So, yeah, I've never looked back. I see JSN as a keeper.
Christian McCaffrey started the season around 24 mil, and he's still floating around the same kind of money. He's down at 21 at the moment. That offense, he's kind of the only thing in that offense, which is why I love him. His break-even's only 24. Why do you think people are trading into him, though? Is this to try and get themselves an established keeper?
Yeah, his usage is just absurd. Like, he is just so involved. People who had worries about Brian Robertson coming in, or they're worried about his injury history and they won't utilise him enough, it's just been completely put to bed. Like, the guy is just averaging over 30 touches a game. It's in the passing game. You're getting those high Supercoach points out of the receptions. And do you know what's crazy, Matty C, is how many rushing touchdowns he reckons he's had this year?
Oh, he hasn't had any, has he? Is it zero?
Zero. He's zero.
They're all receiving touchdowns.
So some of these other years when you've seen absolute domination out of CMC, he's had 17, 18, 19, buddy, rushing touchdowns. He doesn't have a single TD this year, and he's still putting up this kind of, production. Can you even imagine if he starts adding the occasional rushing touchdown into this equation? like I brought up in the preseason, he was just a must-have for me. I was never going to not start with him at that price, and just what he can do and his ceiling. He's running back 2 on the season. He doesn't have a rushing touchdown. It's like only upside from here, only reason for positive. Obviously, touchdown regression. Obviously the constant like worry is injury, but you shouldn't play fantasy that way. If the guy's healthy right now and he's giving you this production, just go get him. Obviously, the avenue to get to him from what these guys are doing, I guess he's probably the one person that if you had the $6 million, I could probably understand a Henry to him. Just because you don't want to wear these next 2 weeks, but at the same time, I love CMC. I would need to see trade people are running. Like if people have got sort of other underperforming sort of mid-ranges or something and they want to spend that money on a CMC and just lock up, like you said, a keeper, I completely understand it. In the end, I just think in a nutshell, I like the buy because I feel like he's not overpriced. I feel like if anything, he's got reason for upside.
Well, I'm telling you a couple of categories that he leads for running back. 39 receptions is 50% more than the person in second who's got 25. More than 50% more. Receiving yards. Second highest in receiving yards is Bijan Robinson with 270. He's had 2 100-yard receiving days. CMC has 387. More than 100 receiving yards more than the next running back. And then he also leads in receiving touchdowns for running backs. And all these things would make him actually an excellent wide receiver. He would be currently, in terms of receiving yards, if you just took how many yards he's currently got, he would be wide receiver 7 on the season just for his yards. And then he's got the 3 touchdowns there. Plus he runs. He's run for 300 yards. So like he's this kind of, it's almost like having a receiver who can run at a running back position. He's super valuable. If you haven't started your season with him, and I went and stumped up for him as my opening team, I thought it was a high risk position, but knowing that there would be high reward if he stays healthy, turns out for a guy who's one of the more injured 49ers over time, and if you include his career at the Panthers before becoming a San Francisco 49er, he's had some real injury problems in the NFL, but here he is, practically the only uninjured 49er 6 weeks into a season, and I kind of just shake my head and go, how? How? But I understand that makes him someone that you have to really consider investing in if you miss the boat, because at 21 million, I don't know that his value could depress lower than that. He just continues to get the volume.
I assume that he's like sapping all the energy and health from all the other players. Like, I
that's what's happening?
He came into the season with like basically 10% life in him, and he's basically just like, got an infusion of all the help from like Kittle and Jennings and Pearsall and Purdy, and just like all of them are just like basically fueling CMC this year to have one good season. Like it is, you're right. It's just insane. He's the most like injury prone player, and then all of a sudden everyone around. Again, I'm not trying to jinx anything, but it's just kind of funny in a way. You can only laugh that, he seems to be the one healthy guy on the Niners. It's just kind of insane.
And then it gets all very Dungeons and Dragons-y that it sounds like, he's this card which saps some energy off players around him to fuel his own energy and give him a bonus. It sounds all very funny when you talk about it in those terms. But CMC, I've just spent so many shares of him in every format. It doesn't even matter what the format is, whether it's, season long or if it's dynasty or if it's best ball leagues, you name it. There's not a league where I haven't invested in CMC in different formats because, it was a high risk. But, when he's healthy, he's almost like a cheat code. And I'm going to move into the 6th most traded in player in all of SuperCoach. His name's Bill, but not really. His name's Jackery Krosky Merritt. And we call him Bill. He is currently at $8.17 million with a break-even of -19. He's one of these great stories where he came in as a rookie with about a $4 million price tag. So he's doubled his value. We're 6 weeks into the season. There's been other injuries in that backfield, and he's now showing that he is able to take up the volume that Washington's going to be pushing his way in the backfield there. This one kind of seems to me the only awkward thing about him is his price, the break-even you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one that I'm toying with it for myself, but not sure if I'm going to be able to sort of make it work. I do understand people just moving Hampton to him because that basically saves you $4 million. And I think with his break even and his schedule coming up, he is going to be able to make that money back up pretty quickly. So this is one where I don't like to sort of be biased and just say like, oh, I like my own trades and I like my own situation, and anyone doing anything other than what I'm doing is wrong. Blah blah
Weird.
blah.
Yeah.
This is one where I don't think I'm going to be able to fit it for my team. I completely understand doing it because I think the situation for him with the schedule, with his break even, this game specifically against the Bears, I brought it up with Genty, a few weeks ago. The Bears are just decimated by running backs, and if Bill's just sort of taken over this running back share for Washington, they obviously get Jaden Daniels back, so the offense is going to be able to move. I think there actually is very, very good scores coming up in the next 3 or 4 weeks for him. So, yeah, I don't mind the buy at all. I don't know if I'm going to be able to swing it, but for anyone out there that's thinking about doing it, I can't talk it down.
This is the first of the established quarterbacks we've talked about really anywhere in buys this year. And we spoke about him last week. Patrick Mahomes is at $22 million, just a shade under $23 million. And he kind of is starting to look like a guy who can move the ball around and start to score some fantasy points again, Tay, in a way that we always knew he could win football games. The last 2 years, he's kind of been a different fantasy player. But all of a sudden now, that ball's picking around and he's picking up points. Do you think it's worthwhile at this price point shifting into Patrick Mahomes? What's your situation going to be like?
Because of that break even, I don't mind it. Because if people are looking at him as a bit of a stopgap towards getting Lamar back, I don't mind it. And the big reason is the rushing baseline. Like for him to have 60 yards rushing and a touchdown on the ground, which obviously gives you the 12 points instead of the 8 for SuperCoach. Like it makes such a massive difference. And, he's only getting healthier receivers. Obviously, Worthy's still a little bit iffy, but he's obviously going to get Rice back soon as well. I do have beliefs because I really think that Jags defense has taken a leap and a half basically from last year. And I think the fact that he was able to do what he did against that Jags defense, I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that struggle against them. And he obviously had a very, very good day. So that wasn't like I was more worried about Mahomes because I've seen a lot of quarterbacks sort of decimate that Ravens team. And you even saw CJ Stroud this week, who had been struggling, had a good game against the Ravens. So I was a little bit iffy on whether Mahomes had turned things around for fantasy. This game made me more confident in him, and the fact that his break-even's low means to me that if you honestly wanted to get him for this 2 or 3 weeks and then reassess when Lamar's back, if you wanted to move back to him, like Patrick Mahomes may have made $2 or $3 million in that process and given you captaincy-worthy scores. So I actually don't have any issues with it. Like I've even looked at it, like, because I'm basically looking at the possibility in one of my trades. I think I already touched on it about the idea of actually shifting Gibbs back to my running back position for Hampton, but then trading Hampton up to a quarterback and then running them in my flex. So there's guys like Stafford. I like his matchup this week, but I'm more worried about him longer term than say Mahomes. So I'm looking at that myself. So I can't hate it.
Our final most traded in guy here, and we're going back to the tight end world, Tay, is only the highest scoring fantasy tight end in all of NFL fantasy and Supercoach. It's Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. He's been in a wonderful position the last couple of weeks, and it sets him up to have an $11.7 million price tag and a -3 break even. Are you buying this?
Look, honestly, kudos to anyone that got on him early because he's been one of the better Supercoach players or just regular NFL fantasy players out there. He's made an absolute shitload of money. He's still got a minus break even. So anyone that got on early, I take my hat off to you. He's been amazing. His target share is insane. He had a 13 reception game. Yeah, it's just honestly been one of those like sort of early season wins for anyone that got on him. I'm not so sure he's a buy right now. Like, yes, I don't see him like falling off a cliff or anything like that, but we also have to factor in that he's done a lot of it without CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's obviously going to come in as the wide receiver 1. You think that's going to shift George Pickens to wide receiver 2, and that's going to take a huge share and a huge chunk out of the passing volume of Dak. But there's obviously going to be huge passing attempts from Dak because their defense sucks. So they're going to be in very good passing game scripts, and Ferguson's always used in the red zone. So this isn't me talking down Ferguson himself. I think he's fine, but it's just another one of these situations where I just don't love trading like sideways at tight end. Like if you're thinking of moving like McBride or like Bowers if he's healthy to him, like I don't love it. Like I just feel like you're basically shifting like who we thought was the tight end 1, 2, or 3 over to a guy that's maybe going to be tight end 7 or 8 for the rest of the season. I don't personally love it, but kudos to anyone that's already on him because he's going phenomenally.
And this one kind of feels like the reason he's 8th is because people are kind of just chasing instead of, like if you're on him earlier, you've benefited from it. And now the folks who are trying to do this are chasing. And I don't love the idea of chasing like that, especially in a position like we've said with tight end where there's other ways to get the job done and to get the points plus work on your cash generation. So like I understand why people are doing it. It's not something I'm doing, but I definitely understand it. And at $11.7 million, he's still got plenty of room to grow, but I wouldn't be trading into him now just to get that because, again, we've talked about this a bunch. I just think that's probably not showing enough respect for the amount of trades we're going to need later in the year.
Yep, 100%.
Wow, that is trades ins and outs. It's just worth noting too, while we've had the Texans and the Vikings on the week 6 bye this week, and we've got the Bills and the Ravens next week, so to plan accordingly, it is worth knowing, Tay, there are so many teams on a bye in week 8.
Yeah, it's just a good refresher, and it's even like came up in my own head when I've been looking at possible trade-ins. Like I even talked about the possibility of do I shift like Hampton up to like a Matthew Stafford because he's got this amazing matchup against the Ravens, but then it's like, yeah, but Stafford, look, like he's not a high-end option. He might have one really good week this week, and then he gets the Jags, who I've talked about. I don't think they're actually a target in defense anymore, and then all of a sudden he goes into that bye. So it's like I just think what you should do in terms of actionability is just I think if you're looking at possible trade-ins, maybe try to avoid the guys from those teams this week unless they are just absolute dominant buys. Like let's just say if the Dolphins happen to be in this week 8 bye, which they're not, I still would get Darren Waller because I just think because of that minus break even, you can always sit him on your bench in the tight end position with that bench spot. They're the kind of guys I would probably still not worry so much about a buy in 2 weeks. But if there's guys that you can wait on that aren't must buys this week, that can wait, obviously, I wouldn't buy them with the knowledge that they've got to buy in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, and those teams on the bye in 2 weeks' time, let me get the grocery list out. It's going to run from here all the way to the end of the room. But it's the Detroit Lions, the Las Vegas Raiders, the LA Rams, the Arizona Cardinals, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, mate, I did a quick stock take just, we were on air last week, and I can see that there's 3 players from those teams who are just in my receiving core. You only get 2 bench. So, it's worth looking at, okay, do I need to move now? Maybe not. How do I get to making sure I've got 6 starters for the week that all these teams are on a bye? And it's just worth kind of circling the players that you think will be the ones that you need to move so you can start to make a plan for it. It's not all action now, but it is just worth knowing, well, how do I sit? Especially in a position like that where you've got so many starters and so few bench.
But this also brings me all the way back to the start of this podcast where I was talking about not burning trades. I think the only actionability right now is maybe looking at possibly holding some trades because of this. It's like, okay, this is 2 weeks away. I am probably going to make maybe one move because I am forced to with all the guys I have at wide receiver out. That's why I look at this week and go, you know what, I'm going to save that trade now because I'm not going to need it in 2 weeks' time. So that's where I think, like we've had questions about do you do a bunch of trades to prepare for that week now? And it's like, no, don't do that. If anything, do the opposite and just wait out your trades and don't just use the sake of it for right now and then wait until that week when you are forced into it. Then you can reassess and make your trades in that moment. And then you've saved a few in the meantime and you're not basically burning them for later in the year. So that would be my way to take this.
Yeah, I think that's really wise because, as you say, this is not the only week where there's a mega buy. There's going to be another one coming up too where we've got quite a lot of teams on buy in one swing.
That list of teams of the buy in week 8 is longer than Shaq's dick.
Mate, it's far, far longer than mine, I'll tell you. Even the list this week's longer than mine. So it tells you just how much you got to prepare for. Mate, it is the last bits that we like to go through on this show each week. We like to spend the time talking with our listener, and our listener comes to us with questions. And this is the beauty of this being the listener's show, is that they've got a specific situation. They can lay it out in front of us and we can try and help them unpick it and give them a direction forward, or maybe give them a bit of sage-like advice to be like, well, in that position, maybe I would or I would do that. We've got a ton of them today, and then we'll also talk about the trades that we have lined up for this week as well. Mate, we have got so many. I hope you've got a big glass of water.
Let's do it.
You thought you talked a lot on the solo pod. You ready?
Yeah, this is where the heart attack happens, buddy. See, get the ambulance ready.
100%. And on the show notes, I've got to say too, it says mailbag. It's a big one. That's what she didn't say. Gotta love producers.
I don't know who wrote that.
I don't. Somebody, one of our AGN minions, clearly.
Yeah, obviously. Someone that's, far more crude than I.
Yeah, right. Let's start with Pete Markham. He's written in to say, is Jacobs a good pod to look at instead of the masses who are moving to CMC and Taylor?
I don't mind it at all, to be honest, Matty C. I always like the pod route. I mean, generally, there are times, obviously, where going the pod route doesn't work because you're just going against the masses for no reason. And then, obviously, sometimes there's a reason why everyone's jumping onto one player. It's just the smart thing to do. But with this situation, I don't mind the pivot away from those sort of higher end guys. And I've got some data in the next 4 games and the matchups that he has. He's up against the Bengals this week, who are last against the running back position in 2025, giving up 132.2 rushing yards per game. Then he goes into the Cardinals, who are 19th against the running back position in 2025 in fantasy. They're giving up a tick over 90 rushing yards a game. Then he's into the Steelers, who are 14th against running backs in fantasy this year, giving up 122 rushing yards per game. And then he finishes at that 4-game stretch with the Panthers, who are 15th against running back this year. They were basically dead last year over an entire sample size, and they're giving up just over 107 rushing yards per game. What I've done with my data is I've kind of gone away from last year, and I've talked about this on our main show that we recorded this week. But what I like to do is not only take running back fantasy data, what I like to do is have a look at how teams are defending the running back position as a whole, because sometimes fantasy data can be skewed by touchdowns. And what I like to do is with a guy like Josh Jacobs, because he's a lead back, and I want to see what his baseline in rushing yards would be instead of touchdowns. We talk about it all the time. It's not a sticky stat. It's hard to replicate. It's hard to know exactly who's going to get touchdowns week to week. So what I would prefer to do is have a look at how a team is defending the running back position and how many rushing yards they're giving up, because I think that's a better baseline.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you've got to work on the stats that are sticky and touchdowns. While it's nice to be able to project that, you can expect a player to get a certain amount of touchdowns over the course of a season. You can't know how many they're going to get week to week, and you certainly can't rely on them. Where you can rely on touches and volume, especially in game scripts, where you know that a team is likely to be in a position where they are in front or in a contest and they'll be running more, versus one where they may be trailing and all of a sudden the running game kind of goes out the window because you've got to make yards in chunk plays and you've got to stop the clock in between those plays. So I think all that's really wise, really, really wise. Mate, I've got one from a frequent flyer. The next one, Kate Upton has dropped us a line most weeks, and I love this. This is one of the great things about this show is if you've got a question, we'll answer it. He says, mate, is it worth using a trade boost this week to go from JJ McCarthy to Jackson Dart? Funny, because we just talked about this.
Yeah, short answer is no for me, especially in this scenario where he's using a boost. We're just talking about saving trades and making sure we've got something later in the year. If this is literally a trade that you're wanting so bad that you're willing to boost for it, it's even bigger no for me. Could I get people who really, really want that quarterback, 1 week and it's the only trade they're making this week? Maybe, but I still don't like it. I don't want to be getting rid of McCarthy. He's got a minus break even himself. I do believe he's back sooner rather than later. I just think Dart, without his wide receiver 1, there's question marks there anyway. I just think you wait it out, see if McCarthy's back next week and reassess.
I copy-paste on that one, mate. Nice and simple. I am apologising in advance because I know I'm going to butcher this one, but I'm pretty sure it's from Ayuni El Hadji. And he says, mate, I've got Nico Collins on a bye and Golden on the bench. Time to sack McMillan up to Debo and then rotate based on fixtures. Similarly, sack Hampton for Jacobs and rotate based on fixtures because he currently has Javonte benched for Genty.
Well, I'm a yes and a no on this one, Matty C. I'm sure as shit not sacking McMillan up to Debo. That is a big no for me. I
think McMillan's going to have a bumper week this week too, to be honest.
Yeah, he's for anyone out there who likes matchup plays, McMillan literally gets the best matchup in the league in the Dallas Cowboys this week. Yes, we all know he's got a Bryce Young problem at times, but they also seem to just play better at home generally, the Panthers, if you look at their home road splits this year. So I just think there's a chance they're in this game that the Cowboys can't stop a wet fart. I know most undies can't, but in general, like the Cowboys couldn't even stop a fucking solid shit. Like they aren't stopping anything. So it is like for anyone who actually wants data and not shit talk, they are last against the wide receiver position and the quarterback position in 2025. So yeah, this is an amazing matchup for Tet. Don't get out of him. Debo, McLaurin's going to come back. There's reason to believe that Debo has probably had his best outages this year, than obviously the end of the year. So I would not be making that trade. No way. Yeah. But I don't mind the Hampton to Jacobs. I just brought up Jacobs, obviously, in an earlier question. He's got a great run of matchups coming up. I don't mind the upsell from Hampton because obviously Hampton's out for at least 4 weeks. So absolutely no problem with that one. But yeah, please don't sell McMillan up to Debo.
Yeah, mate. And I think we've covered in some detail over time to just where Dallas on their, the defense lands on the shit spectrum for defending anything at all, whether it's a running back, a quarterback, or a tight end, or in this case, a wide receiver. So I would not be running away from Ted McMillan in that matchup. Mate, the next one comes in from Johnny Garbers. Are we trading Jameson Williams? He holds a place in your heart, though. This is tough, mate.
It is, but this is another lesson I just brought up before, that you have to watch games with your eyeballs and you need to reassess. You don't just go in with your preseason takes and just believe them constantly, because that's when real problems happen. Yes, I'd be selling Jamo. I just think, look, do I believe there are better days ahead and there could be better situations? Yes. But what I believed from Jamo and why I liked him this year is just not happening. I thought the days of him having these random games where he'd have 2 and then 24, I thought that was over. I felt like the usage he was getting at the end of last year was prescriptive for this year, and it just hasn't been. It's too random. Amon-Ra is just too dominant. He's just never going to be consistent. He's got a bye, and he's in that huge bye round in week 8. There's just too many amazing buys at wide receiver to be sort of holding on to Jamo for me. So I would put him in the sell category.
Yeah, it's tough. Pull one out. But Jameson Williams, hopefully better days ahead. But he's probably not a SuperCoach target at the moment. There's also from Reese Christensen. Shout out, because he's the leader of our group currently. Jamar Chase, is he a hold or not with the potential new quarterback change? Joe Flacco's come in there, mate. Do you think that's good news?
It is good news. I don't know if it's as good as news as people think, but I don't think it's better good news. It's better than Browning to me.
I don't even know if it is.
That's what I'm. Look, he's going to die. They're literally making him the sacrificial lamb behind that offensive line. But I still think he can throw and make better reads at this point than Browning. Again, that's up for debate. I personally think it is. It's not so much better that all of a sudden Jamar Chase is like the wide receiver 1 or something again. It's not that I believe that, but at least sometimes in fantasy, all you're after is just a change, whether it is even sideways. Sometimes that's all it takes for things to sort of change for someone. Obviously, Browning actually finally got it going with Chase last week, so you saw a better game that obviously helps break even moving forward. So what my answer is if I had Chase, it's at least enough of an optimistic thought that I'm holding it. I'm not here on a soapbox saying this changes everything. He's going to be dominant. He's save everyone, go and grab him now. But if you've held this long, it makes no sense for me to sell now. You've just seen a good game, or great game, really. You've got optimism, at least in the sense that it's a different quarterback. I'm not guaranteeing it's dominant, but at least it's different than what you had seen in those early days of Browning. So I'm on the side of holding for sure. Like I'm not selling him now. I sold him 3 weeks ago. That was the moment for me because I just didn't like how it looked of Browning. But if you've held out this long, you've got to stay the course.
I don't know how you can be happy walking away from Chase now with all that you've lost without at least giving it the chance to recoup your sum back. I just don't know how you do it. So I'm also not a proponent of selling just for that reason. I don't know that it can be worse. It could be better, but it definitely can't be worse. The next one comes from Sam Williams. Hopefully not former Raiders and Dragons Sam Williams. Hopefully I'll get his autograph. Hampton up to a top RB or down to Bill Crosky-Merritt?
That's a great question, and it's going to sound fence city. I kind of don't mind either, because if I was downgrading, Bill would be the one, just because of those amazing matchups. You make about $4 or so million. So I do like that avenue too. And we've even chatted about, I don't mind the up to Jacobs. I've also got the idea of moving myself to a quarterback just because of the way I've got my flex set up currently. I've got a running back in there at the moment, so I can make that move. I guess if you need an answer in terms of which one's better, it is super hard when I can't see your team, because if you can make a super good second trade with that extra $4 million that you're making from moving Bill, Hampton down to, then that would obviously tip it towards that for me. But it's like, if that $4 million isn't really doing a lot for you, then I think you probably want the gun. I think it also depends on what your 4 starters are right now. Like if you're starting a sort of mid-ranger that you're not getting a whole lot out of, you really need that 4th awesome starter, I think, at running back. So if that's your situation, I would go that direction. If you aren't forced into needing a stud this week, I think I would go Bill. And honestly, if I had Bill, I would start him this week because that Bears matchup is unbelievable. So
yeah, it is.
You know what? I'm trying my hardest not to fancy. I know it sucks because I just think both options are fine. But what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to lean Bill in this situation, and because I think he is a bit of, I guess, a pod situation where you could start him this week for a very, very good matchup that could give you a huge boost of points, go up massively in dollar value, and then you can sort of reassess because he's got 4 awesome matchups in a row. So you can reassess in 4 weeks, hopefully, obviously staying healthy during those 4 weeks, and you could almost shift him after those 4 weeks to a gun. So I'm going to lean Bill, but I'm fine either way.
Yeah. Because I even think in my situation where I've got Hampton on my bench, I could just drop Hampton for Bill and not even spend the $4 million and just enjoy the matchups that Bill's got. And that's a creative, it's a productive use of the spot, even if you're not using the money straight away. The money's fine. There's other spots where I've got money on my bench, so this doesn't actually move the needle that much for me in terms of the desire to have that money on the field. This would be 100% a move for the points.
Yep, no problem, mate.
A couple to go. I've got one from Jacob Talun O'Brien, and he says, I love this question, mate, because we often do this in a podcast too, is which 3 players have a juicy matchup for a pod to vice captain this week?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't so much go the pod route because the thing is, I don't think people kind of realize that when they're doing vice captains and it's not a quarterback, you kind of look at the numbers and everyone's kind of a pod. There's that many options that very rare. It's not like NRL where Cleary's coming up against the fucking Knights on a Friday night, and it's like everyone's just smashing vice captain onto Cleary because they know he's basically got a bare minimum of 160 against those fucking Newcastle wankers. So I didn't, when I kind of had a few guys, I did it more based off matchup more so than looking the pod route because as I said, I think you'd be surprised if you took these guys to see how small their percentages are when you actually take them when they're not like Josh Allen or Lamar or something like that. So the guys I had written down, I think Saquon is just ready to explode. If he's literally playing the first game, he's a perfect slot for a vice captain against the Giants, who are 25th against the running back position this year and 26th in yards given up. On the ground, sorry. So I think Saquon is a smash VC, and honestly, because of his struggles this year, I don't know if he's going to be that popular in the vice captain realm. So he's one that I'm personally doing. Puka Nakua against the Ravens, who are second last against the wide receiver position in 2025. They play the early slate on Monday morning for us Australians. So he's in a good slot to a vice captain. One that I think actually would be an even bigger pod, and he's actually a quarterback, and it's actually Matt Stafford in that game because the Ravens are horrendous against the quarterback position. So anyone who happened to have him, probably a pretty low percentage have him in the first place. So obviously the vice captaincy is going to be super duper low. The other one I just sort of touched on in terms of one of the other mailbag questions is Josh Jacobs. I think against the Bengals, who are last against the running back position. He is in the 7 a.m. slate for us Australians, though. So you'd obviously need a captain playing later, which is kind of lucky. We've got Josh Allen playing on the Tuesday. But also make sure you have room on your team to facilitate a non-player to come in. So just thought I'd give that caveat for anyone who's considering Jacobs. But they're kind of the guys based off matchups that I think could be very good vice captain players this week.
Last one here is from Jeff Wallace, right? And he says, for owners who are going to elect to hold JJ McCarthy, you're going to continue to hold him hoping he reclaims that starting job from Wentz, or are you just going to do the trade for Dart? He also said, mate, and I think you'll love this, loving the podcast, keep up the great work, big fella.
I think, even though this is a double-up question, I think that's half the reason we kept it. But a bit of promotion from the listeners. And look, I have to agree. That last part especially, just an absolute great podcast. But anyway, I digress. Look, we've obviously touched on this question already. I just still want to get Jeff's question on there. We're obviously seeing everyone's questions, so we want to get to as many as we can. We've obviously talked about it to have gone blue in the face. I'm waiting McCarthy to see if he gets the starting. I am certain he gets it off Wentz. Wentz to me is a stopgap. They obviously didn't even win, one of the games while they were overseas. I just think that McCarthy's healthy, he's back in, and I am personally sticking with him and not using a trade to go to Dart.
One thing we like to do before we disappear too is, mate, we play, right? So we like to sort of tell people what we're up to in our classic teams as well. Mate, what are your trades looking like for this week?
So the first one I'm doing, again, I've said that I didn't want to use up too many trades on tight end, and I specifically don't really want to use up a lot on defense either. I did think about making a trade in defense last week, but I was like, you know what? Because I didn't really have great matchups. I have the Niners and the Panthers currently, and I'm like, I don't really like either of their matchups. One, Niners were playing the Rams, which actually worked out okay. He got 14. But I actually went with the Panthers at home against the Dolphins team without Tyreek, and they'd been playing all right at home. They got like 6 points. They also had a low break even and made some money because they had like a 40-something against Atlanta a couple of weeks still in their average. So my thought was I would wait one more week on them, make a little bit of money, and then make a move this week. I spoke last week on the pod for anyone, that was kind of keeping an eye on this. I brought up the Pats defense as something to wait out 1 week and then target them this week. They have an absolute awesome string of matchups. So for anyone, just go have a look at their few matchups coming up. I've talked about it. It's basically like the 4 best matchups you can get in a row for a defense. So I'm shifting Carolina over to them, and I actually make money out of that trade, which is kind of crazy. Like the Pats haven't really broken out fully, and they're sitting around that like 6 million range, and the Carolina are actually more. So I'm making about $1 million out of that trade. And I've talked about the possibility I may only do that trade, but I'm also looking at possibly shifting Hampton maybe up to Mahomes and then running him with the possibility of trading, obviously, him over to Lamar when Lamar comes back after the bye. So that's the 1 or 2 trades I'm currently looking at.
Yeah, and I haven't done my trades yet, but I'll tell you, I made the ballsiest big mistake last week when I was on here on the podcast saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the shift around and just move Jonathan Taylor in my move out from Lamar Jackson, and Jonathan Taylor is going to become my flex. And then just as the week wore on, I started getting more and more enamored with James Cook, and I decided to do that instead. And it bit me right on the soft end of the knob because then, James Cook goes and throws up 9 points. I don't end up using him as my vice. He sits in my flex, and Christian McCaffrey's my vice. And even after McCaffrey runs, I decided not to loop to, and see what Josh Allen comes up with. And of course, Josh Allen comes up with 40. McCaffrey had 47. So I lose some points on not doing the looping. So I just kind of a few ways, it kind of became like a landmine that would not stop exploding. It's like, You didn't trade in Jonathan Taylor. You traded in James Cook. He scored 9 points. You didn't loop. So it's just kind of one of these things where every way I looked at it, I was just getting more and more infuriated at myself for being so impulsive when I had my plan. So that's a little lesson for me there. This coming week, sorry, mate?
I was going to say the old triple whammy. It's funny. Any super coaches know about it. It's like when one thing goes wrong, it seems to be three. It's just the rule of super coach, really.
Oh my God. It reminds me of this KFC ad from about 25 years ago where one person said to the other, how does that zinger taste? And he didn't say any words. He just moved his head up, just so he could have a good look in his face. And then he took both his hands and he slapped both the guy's cheeks at the same time and then went back to probably eating his burger. And I kind of feel like that's exactly what SuperCoach did to me last week. So... mate, I don't even know that I need to do a heap this week. I'm starting to look at my week 8 situation where I've got Puka Nakua, Amon-Ra Brown, Jacoby Myers all on that bye that week, and I've only got the 2 bench spots. I am expecting by that stage I'll have Micah Evans back, and Justin Jefferson is on my bench on a bye this week. So those 2 I'm expecting to be back. So it's just that I need to have a plan to remove one of them, and I kind of feel like Jacoby Myers probably hasn't worked out the way I hoped, and I may look to use him to move up. After my trades last week, I'm actually sitting on a little bit of a surplus as well. So I kind of feel happy about that after doing the Lamar trade and also trading out the Jaguars to put in the Rams, who I'm holding them from a couple of weeks. So I hear what you're saying about the Patriots, and there's a part of me that wants to move into the Patriots, but I'm just going to stick with the Rams for the couple of weeks. But for me this week, I'm coming in with a surplus of like $8 million. So it gives me an opportunity to move somebody like Jacoby Myers out and put in a real stud. And then I know a guy like Ibuka is starting to run out of time, and it's the money I make off him that can potentially buy me back into Lamar Jackson after his bye week's over. So that's kind of what I'm planning. I haven't got anything set in stone yet, but that's me not doing a trade for the sake of doing a trade, me doing a trade to give myself a way up into a better player, but also navigate that super bye coming up.
I will also just give a caveat. If you're looking to trade in a defense, don't trade them with the idea to look at 1 week of a good matchup and then trade them. It's what I'm doing with the Pats is I like the next 4. You really need to take a bit more of a long-term look at it because you can't just be hopping your trades back and forth to good matchups one by one. You can do that in real NFL fantasy because it's waivers and doesn't cost you anything. Whereas if you're actually trading, you really need to be trading in a team that you're happy to play for a longer period of time, or at least work out the matchups with your other defense and just sort of go back and forth between it because you don't want to be using too many trades on it. So I just thought I give that caveat to anyone going, what the fuck's Taylor bringing in a defense for one of his trades? I'm just saying it's because I really like their matchups moving forward as well, not just this week.
Yeah. And my specific case with this wide receiver thing, say you'd mentioned like Jackson Smith and Jigba earlier in the podcast. I'm like, well, I can't trade him in because he's on the mega bye week. So it means that I have to go looking further afield. And it may end up being someone like Garrett Wilson, or this might be the last opportunities to use a guy like Jamar Chase at $18 million before he starts to rise in price again if things do go well with Flacco coming in. For those of us who believe in Cortland Sutton, maybe that's the kind of move you can do if you're in a similar position, because these are all guys who are not in that mega bye week who all kind of have the opportunity to give you points. And Jacoby Myers, for me, I thought he was going to be producing more than he is, and he was kind of my one like mid-price like guilty pleasure, and he just kind of hasn't worked out. So he's going to be the one who cops it, mate.
No worries, mate. What I might just end with, we haven't specifically done this, so I just thought we'd do our captaincy choices as well as our trades. I've kind of touched on mine. What I'm planning to do right now is vice captain Saquon in that matchup against the Giants on our Friday, and then I'll probably stick the C on Josh Allen up against the Falcons. So I think that could be a high scoring game in that dome. So they're my 2 options. I'm pretty much sticking with this week.
Yeah, and like as I said, what I'd done last week too is that I'd run with McCaffrey as my vice and then Allen as my captain. I'm going to keep them in that order as well this week. And I just don't believe that Josh Allen's going to have 2 depressed weeks in a row, especially, he's playing a primetime game against a team whose defense, they do tend to play better when they're in the dome in Atlanta. But I kind of feel like Josh Allen finds a way, man. 2 bad games in a row in terms of super coach points. I'm just not so sure. I want to be there when it goes boom.
Yeah, and honestly, the Falcons thing's more to do with their offense seems to go really well at home. It doesn't always translate. They might win more games, but it doesn't generally translate to their defense stopping the other team. It becomes shootouts. at home for them. So I actually like Josh Allen in that matchup, even if I do believe the Falcons are in for a decent day themselves. But it's more there I'm worried about more than their defense.
So, mate, that brings us to the end of Super Coach Halfa podcast number 10. They have just been so full today of people's questions and all the moves for people getting traded in and out. That's been the meat and potatoes of what we've been doing here. But give us your feedback. This is the big key thing that Tay and I have spoken about through the podcast. Give us your feedback. The show is for you. And we wanted to make sure that if you're going to spend the time with us, that it's focused in on things that are important to you. If it is focus a lot on the mailbag, we'll do it. If it is spend more time on the trade guys, we'll do it. If it's drop this or that, we'll consider anything, mate. We just want to make sure that the podcast is hitting where, it's going to give you the best value.
Yeah, absolutely. And we obviously had the biggest mailbag we've had all season, which is great. It shows everyone really, really keen and still active. So that's great to hear from you guys. And, obviously this is probably the longest SuperCoach Halfa we've done yet. We sort of keep breaking through that Halfa and making it about 3 times as big as that. But I think we're happy to do that if you guys are engaged and giving us all these extra questions. It's honestly why we're doing this podcast. So, again, just a huge thank you to all you SuperCoaches. You guys are making this podcast what it is. And, if you give us a question, we don't mind making the podcast a bit longer and getting to it. It's just, we really want your guys' questions answered. So thank you so much for the support.
Also, don't forget to join the SuperCoach League because there is a chance to win some stuff and also just a chance to be in a community with more people who are in Australia playing NFL SuperCoach and also give yourself an opportunity to set yourself your own marker if you end up not in a position where you think you can win the big prize. But there is a custom NFL jersey and some Aussie Gridiron Network gear up for grabs in that for the winner. But that league code, you can find it here in the notes for our show, but it's also the code is 962235. Go and throw that in and come and join the mob. We'd love to have you. Tay, good luck this week with your SuperCoach, mate. It's nice to hear that you've been on the improve lately.
Yeah, mate. For anyone, I know we don't specifically go into our scores and our ranks and stuff like that, but I think I was sitting at about 13,000 2 weeks ago and weren't going well. So I was technically still ahead of about 50% of SuperCoaches, but obviously it wasn't really where I wanted to be and felt like I'd set my team up a lot better than that. So I was confident that the ranking was going to change, but obviously, within 2 weeks, I've gone to just under 4,000. So it's significant change for me, and I've got my team set up quite well, and the hope is that I won't have to burn too many trades in the next few weeks because my team's set up the way I want it. So yeah, hopefully better success moving forward, mate. But honestly, in the end, I'm pretty happy with the advice I've given on the podcast so far. It doesn't my advice doesn't have to be specific to my own team. Just because my own team wasn't starting well doesn't mean I can't give decent advice to you guys. So hopefully you taken what I've said and you've said and this podcast and it's helped you guys so far. So yeah, look, I'm always working. I'm always trying to better my teams, wherever it's regular NFL, fantasy or SuperCoach. So I'm going to keep grinding, mate. That won't stop. So good luck to SuperCoach moving forward, and we're in this together. So let's go.
Let's go. We'll get you all next week here on the SuperCoach 1.5. We may have to change the name today. If you do play other versions of NFL Fantasy, though, come join us. Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. We are here on the same network, the Aussie Gridiron Network. We air on Fridays and Sundays. Got a great guest this week. We're even talking about buying and selling players on long season format. So that may be helpful for people who are starting to think about SuperCoach and the team they want to end up with toward the end of the year. And then also catch the guys from G'day Gridiron. They're great with the NFL analysis. They're probably good with AFL analysis too, let's face it. Those guys can do everything. But they also do a show midweek where they go through all the big reactions from the previous week. And then they also have the show where they talk about the 4 big games that you got to watch and the Monday night doubleheader this coming week. Find it all here on the Aussie Gridiron Network while you're here for the SuperCoach Halfa. We'll catch you all next week, guys. Hooroo!
Hooroo! Thank you, SuperCoaches.
Get it faster. Taylor leads Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. Get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.